Hello and welcome to another episode of the Other Ranting Atheist. Yes, I'm not the only one out there, and I'm really happy about that. So, today I'm going to be ranting about a topic that I've been thinking about for at least the past couple of days, and it's that the Christian worldview is not logical. Now, the reason why I say that is because I stumbled across YouTube videos maybe a week or two ago that has to do with atheists and Christians debating. Uh, Philosophical debates, talking about the Christian worldview and not Christian worldview, what's logical, what's not. And I've come across a lot of presuppositional apologists on Discord debating. And I've noticed that because they're presuppositional, they make a lot of assumptions. But the funny thing is, they claim that their worldview is absolutely logical. They're not the only ones who do that. I mean, I would guess you would say the default form of Christianity, they would claim that their belief is logical, but um, they'll probably be a lot less stringent about it. So, in other words, if you ask them that if their belief is logical, they'll say yes, but for the reasons why they believe, if they were to give you a testimony, they're not going to use logic. They're going to use personal experience, which I would say all Christians would, because when you look into it, you'll realize that all Christians believe for personal reasons. They might use um, logical reasons, such as apologetics, to justify that position to other people, especially other people who are looking for logical reasons. But to themselves and to people like them, personal experience is all they stick with. That's enough proof for them. But that's not the reason why they believe. Anyway, so Christians in general would say that their position is logical. But these Christians now, these presuppositional apologists, what they'll do is they'll use logical reasons either to justify their position, but it only goes so far because they'll get to the very top where they have to make their presupposition. So everything is logical until it gets to the non-infinite regress point, at which point they'll say that starting point is absolutely necessary, and that's all the justification that's needed. But the thing is, if you press them enough, and not just presuppositional apologists, but any Christian, if you press them enough, like I said, you'll get to the point where logic breaks down, and you get down to either a brute fact about God being a necessity, or they'll do what a lot of other Christians do who don't rely on logic. They'll appeal to divine mystery. And this is something that you'll notice with a lot of Christians when it comes to certain topics, such as the Trinity. Now, a lot of Christians will say that the Trinity is logical and attempt to make sense of it in a logical way, logical fashion, but it's not purely logical. And the reason why I'm saying that is you're going to get to a point where the Trinity doesn't make sense. And at that point, the person that is trying to explain it will either have to say, well, God's logic is different from our logic, therefore, even though it doesn't make sense to you, in the grand scheme of things, it does make sense. Which is something that you can't say anything about because they claim that God has some different kind of logic, and it makes sense to him, but it doesn't make sense to anyone else. Like how there is no way you can confirm or deny that. You just got to take it. So they'll either say that, or they'll say that they'll just appeal to the divine mystery and says, "I don't know, nobody knows, only God knows." Um, and that's it. They'll just leave it at that. But that's because what they're doing is, especially for those who claim that their position is logical, what they're doing is when they get to the point that they have to appeal to divine mystery, basically what they're saying is that their position is not logical. Because what happens is they appeal to divine mystery when you keep pressing them and keep asking them probing questions that leads to the non-infinite regress point. In other words, it leads to the very beginning of where their belief starts. If you keep pressing them, the further you get to the beginning, the more you'll realize that logic breaks down until they get to the point where there is no more logic and they just have to appeal to a mystery. Nobody knows, only God knows. Which is funny because they receive revelation when it comes to the existence of God, but when it comes to revelation for things that are not explained in the Bible, such as the Trinity, then all of a sudden, God didn't reveal that to them. He revealed his existence, but that's where he stopped. So when it comes to revealing how to make sense of the Trinity, or revealing how Jesus could be 100% man and God, two forms that are absolutely diametrically opposed. How you can be, first of all, how you can be the 200 doesn't make sense. 100 is supposed to be the total, but even if you could be 200% of something, how can you be 200% of two things that are absolutely opposite in nature? It doesn't make sense. So I'm like, okay, so God revealed to you that he exists. That's great. But he couldn't take his time to reveal to you how to make sense of the Trinity and the hypostatic union. It just, it's bizarre to me. But anyway, it just so happens that God only reveals things that they can get from the Bible, that are quote unquote explicitly mentioned in the Bible, and things that aren't explicitly mentioned in the Bible, like how Lucifer was able to sin despite the fact that he was created perfect. Well, we gotta appeal to divine mystery because God's, for some reason, he's not interested in using special revelation to disseminate information to us that we cannot get from the Bible through either a plain reading of the text or an interpretation. No, he's just only going to reveal to us things that we can figure out for ourselves. But that's besides the point. It's just whenever you press a Christian enough, eventually they'll get to a point where there is no logic. Logic doesn't make sense. And either by saying that God's logic is different from our logic, and because we're fallen human beings, we cannot understand God's logic, or God knows and we don't, and that's it. But that's not a logical standpoint. To say that you have no proof, like you have no hard proof, you might mention little things here and there that you can take as proof that the Bible is true, but for the most part, I think it's pretty clear that it is not true. And this is definitely comes to all points where faith is needed, because faith isn't needed if you have evidence. So, the Bible mentions several times about believing in things that you cannot see, or believing in things that are not. Um, but that's not logical. You don't believe in things that don't exist as if they do exist. There's nothing logical about that. And again, there's nothing logical about the Bible or anything in it. I mean, there's nothing logical about a being who is a God, who's able to perform miracles, which are basically events that defy nature. There's nothing logical about that. So when you think about it, the fact that everything entailed in the Bible requires you not to be logical, it only makes sense that the entirety of the belief, which is made up of all of those individual instances that don't require logic, for the most part, would also be illogical. But the thing is, when Christians say that their belief is logical, it's not that it actually is. It's that, like I said before with apologetics, Christians believe for personal reasons, personal experience, mostly. But the reason why they come up with apologetics is to defend their belief from people who would not accept personal experience. So for people who are more naturalists, believing that there's everything in the world is physical, they're gonna want physical proof, or they're gonna want proof that they can um, validate. And Christians don't have that. You cannot personally validate someone else's personal experience. You can't do that. Only they know what's happened to them. You might have other people who witnessed that event, and in their mind it seemed to be a certain way, but at the end of the day, the only person who can validate a personal experience is the person who had that experience. No one else can. So when someone asks a Christian why they believe, or a Christian is explaining to somebody why they believe, and all it is personal experience, unless the person has had that personal experience and believes that those personal experiences can happen, they have no reason to believe them. And that's where apologetics comes in. That attempts to make sense out of their belief, make it logical to the point where people who will not accept personal experience will accept the Christian faith. But it's purely for defending their belief against those who would not accept any other evidence. That's what it's for. It's not because they use apologetics to believe, because nobody believes in God. Nobody holds to the Christian faith for apologetics. No one. It's always personal experience. And so those who use Apologetics is just to defend their faith. It's not about this is the reason why I believe, because that's not why they believe. It's just what they use to justify their belief to those who will not accept their evidence, which again is personal experience. So anyway, that's my rant for today. It's a little bit different from the couple past videos I did, because that was just speculation, thinking about why things could be, I guess, alternative explanations for a couple of events in the Bible. But anyway, I hope you enjoy my talk, and I'll see you in the next one.